So, like I said here, in this video, we will find a manifestation technique that resonates with you subjectively, with you personally. As you know, there are multiple techniques out there, but not every technique is suiting for every person. But and also not every technique is, in a sense, matching the situation. Right? Sometimes we might like to simply declare something as true and simply make this inner decision without actually needing a long technique. But sometimes, especially if it's like a what we coined bigger desire, something that feels so far away, so unnatural, that where we have like such a strong hunger for that desire, of course there are ways, there are methods that you can utilize to make that in a better way natural instead of just deciding. Because what can happen is that if you just affirm for one of your, let's just say, main desires where the hunger is really intense, you might for a short period of time like adjust the surface level and you kind of feel relaxed, but then the desire comes back as strong as previously. But the goal is that we deeply move within, right? That we shift within consciousness, that it's not just a slight readjustment of the surfaces of like a little affirmation here and there, but it's like a deep shift within us. And again, that's why I say for some desires, it is enough to just affirm and state that it's true. For other desires, you can pick one of the following methods that I'm going to share with you so that we can find one that suits you best for your desire today. So let's just dive right in. And here's the agenda for today's video. So I want to talk with you about, first of all, the technique basics and the fundamentals, right? So when we talk about manifesting something, making something tangible, assuming something that is unseen so that it can reflect back to us and be externalized in our external world, what are the basics that we need to understand? What are the fundamentals when it comes to applying certain techniques? And then I want to talk with you about how would it feel if X, Y, and Z would be true, right? That's an amazing self question you can ask yourself to evoke that state of the wish fulfilled. Also, of course, one of the core approaches, imagining a scene, having this little experience that we imagine that implies to us that our goal is manifested, that would follow the manifestation, right? And we imagine it now to shift us in the here now in that fulfilled state. Also powerful is I remember when, right? I remember when I desired this. I remember when I was this. I remember when this was present in my life, right? This is where we, in a sense, put the current circumstances in the past and we consciously place ourselves into that future state where we, in a sense, look back to when we remember when we had this, when this was the case, but now we are who we want to be. Now we have what we want to have. This is really, really powerful. We talk about revision, right? It's in a sense revision is also about a radical internal realignment, a radical internal shift. But what is meant by that is that, let's just say yesterday someone said no to you, they declined an offer, that you reimagine that in a way that they said yes, right? You revise your past, very, very powerful. And last but not least, thankfulness and gratitude, right? Going in this bigger, more wider space and mood of just being thankful that your goals has already been accomplished without knowing the way, without knowing the when, without knowing the how. So those will be the techniques that we're going to talk about. And here are the basics, the fundamentals, right? So what we always do when we manifest, when we shift into a state, is that we always bring the desired state, right? That which we hope to get in the future, that which we hope to get tomorrow, next week, next month, right? That which we want to experience, which we hope for to happen like very soon. What we do when we manifest consciously is that we bring that desired state in the here and now as already being fulfilled, right? We are now assuming it is done. We're now assuming it to be true via our imagination, right? Because for our senses, it is clearly not done yet. In our sense world, it's clearly not here yet. Our circumstances still yell at us and tell us that you are not your desired version of yourself. But regardless, we go above that and we elevate within consciousness into that level, into that frequency is what others would say, right? But into that state of consciousness where we now view the world from the wish fulfilled, right? And I will again tell you how you can do that with those techniques that we're going to talk about. So through that, we persuade ourselves, basically is what we do, that it is already so, right? We identify with that unseen state. You might right now be identified with being lonely, being single, being not with your partner, being not in the relationship, being financially struggling, being a struggling business owner, not having the finances you want, being ill, right? What we do is we identify with something that is only we can see, that is subjective, right? A Neville called it a subjective appropriation. We subjectively claim / assume / occupy that state. And then more and more and more so, will it become natural for us? Will it become true to us? Will we be identified with it? And that's the goal, right? So we shift into the state of being and having what we want to be or have, so that the desire dies, right? We transcend desiring it into being it / having it, because we experience inside of ourselves and our inner reality, we already assume that wish-fulfilled state, right? So, but like I wrote here, not through force or effort, but by surrendering us to this state. I also made a video on my channel called The Secret of Surrender. So we do that by, again, surrendering to this state. We're not trying to get it in the future and get it and project our desire in the future. No, we understand that now within ourselves, we can generate the same mood, the same state that we would be in would the manifestation be there. Because we understand that the manifestation will follow. It is the consequence, the result, the mirror, the delayed confirmation of the inner state that we already awakened within ourselves. So we first experience it as done. We will no longer seek for it, wait for it, need it. And then our life is like, hey, here you go. Listen, look, that's what you did inside of yourself, right? It is a delayed confirming mirror telling you who you are, what you claimed to be true for yourself. So we become conscious of it being already done. But when we imagine it, we shift our awareness into that state, into that portion of creation. Imagine infinite creation, all potentials are already fully made out. Everything is fully, like, creation is finished. Everything that you can imagine already exists. You can't create it. You can only align yourself into that state where you already are who you want to be. It's a big difference, right? You're not creating that circumstance. No, that circumstance or that state where you have that circumstance is there. You align yourself into that state which comes with that corresponding circumstance, right? So by imagining it, we tune into it, so we become conscious of it already being done, and our life mirrors back what we are conscious of being, right? Also Neville said this, life is a mirror, forever magnifying what we are conscious of being, what we already know to be true for ourselves. And what is important to mention before we now dive into the techniques is that techniques itself are not the cause for your manifestation. Techniques itself are not the cause for you to shifting into your desired state, right? We are the cause. Our imagination, our consciousness is the cause, and we can simply consciously apply those techniques to help us occupy this state. But like I said in the beginning, in actuality, it is consciousness that shifts. We shift. We identify with something new, right? We awaken something new inside of ourselves. We can do that without techniques. That's why they are optional. I also have videos on my channel about that you can also manifest without techniques, right? It's not necessary, but of course they have proven themselves to work smoothly because they're simply so helpful. They're simply so enjoyable when we do them the right way. They can really even be like a lot of fun to even apply them, right? But the real cause is not the technique. That's like a tool we use to for us as conscious to shift easier in that state. Okay? So that's it for the basics and fundamentals. Now let's just start with the first method. And again, what I want you to do is I want you to watch this video, learn about those techniques, get reminders on those techniques. You might already know some of them. And then I want you to see which of those does resonate with you right now most for your present desires. And it could be that for one desire, you feel like it's easier to apply this one technique. And then for another desire for you, it's easier to apply the second technique. So watch it and find out which technique is best suited for you and for your situation. So first one is called, how would I feel if X, Y, and Z would be true, right? It's a question that you ask to yourself. And the magic word here in this question is would, right? Not how do I feel now that I have the desire. That might feel delusional. Your mind kicks in and it's very loud. It's like, no, but you don't have the desire. But we ask would to, in a sense, quieten our rational mind, which is tied to the senses. And so we see in front of us, okay, now the manifestation is not there. How can I be in my wish fulfilled in any way? But that's why we ask, how would I feel? suppose is also a great word, right? Suppose I have my manifestation. How would I feel if it would be true in my world right now, right? So you'll automatically get an answer, even though it is a very subtle one. The more you ask it, the more you calm your mind, the more you investigate into that question, the more you will see like subtle mood arises, a subtle state comes to the surface, a subtle answer basically comes up, right? And also images will come up in front of your mind's eye that has to do with your wish fulfilled. If you want a car, as a general example, and you say, hey, how would I feel if I would have this car? And just for some seconds, you dwell on that question, you remain there, you will see that images are coming up. Maybe an image of how your friend stands in front of the car with like shocked eyes, being like really like amazed about this car, or another image is coming up. This car is standing in your parking lot. You will, and that's a good sign when those matching images that would only be there to happen, if they come up in your awareness, that means that you started to dwell on the wish fulfilled. So it's simply a great question also to investigate that wish fulfilled and to find out more about it, and to just wonder in imagination and see, hey, how would that be like? Oh no, maybe no, that's not really that relevant, but what would it be like if it would be like that? Oh yeah, that feels good. That hits the spot. Boom. And then we can play with this question, see what comes up, keep dwelling there, and of course you can combine it with the following techniques. So this is why I put this on purpose on the beginning, because this can be a great way to start to become aware of the state you want to be in. What would it be like? What would someone say to you? Which scenes do come up automatically when you ask that question? And then we can go in the second technique, which is picking such an image that comes up, if that resonates with you, and then having that as our imaginal act that implies to us that it is done. So that's just a great question. And this is also a great question, by the way, that you can ask dynamically throughout your day. When you walk to the grocery store, when you're in the grocery store, when you're walking in the park, when you're out in the restaurant, when you're driving, when you're sitting somewhere, when you're waiting for something, you can ask, how would I see the world if that would be true? What would be my outlook on life? How would others perceive me? How would I perceive the world? Right? So you can ask this in between dynamically. It's a very nice way to shift your state in a very smooth way. Okay? Let's go into the second technique, which is one of the core methods. I studied all of Neville's teachings, and this method, this technique is always coming up again and again in his own stories, that the things he manifested, how his mentor told him how to manifest, how he taught his students to manifest, the success stories of his students. That is one of the core methods because it is so potent. And in a second, you should be able to see why. So how does this work? Right? What we do is that we construct a single event, right? A little scene, a little experience, which implies that we have realized our desire, meaning something that would only happen after our manifestation took place. So the manifestation took place, boom, it's in our world. What would happen after that in our world? Who would congratulate us on that it is now there? What would we do in our life that we would only be able to do because that manifestation is there? What would we say to ourselves within? What would someone say to us? Right? You get the point. One simple little thing like shaking a hand, embracing a person, receiving a letter, writing a check, whatever would imply the fulfillment of your desire. Right? So when I manifested a car, I imagined holding the car keys. When I imagined health, I imagined smiling at myself in the mirror and saying, finally, I never felt better before. When I imagined an apartment, I imagined cheering classes together in the apartment, celebrating that with family and friends that it's now there. When I imagined a specific person, I imagined hearing words such as, wow, like, do you have a new perfume? So something that, again, only follows the external manifestation. And for multiple other manifestations, it was always the same approach when I used that technique, right? So you take this simple little restricted action, which implies fulfillment of your prayer, of what you pray for, and you feel it and you enact it, right? So don't put too much emphasis on the word feeling. Focus simply, I tell you that from my own experience, simply focus on experiencing the scene because you know that imagination is real and you know that you can now spiritually sense the fulfillment of your desire. You can spiritually hear your friend congratulate you. You can spiritually hold something in your hand or see a smile or hear an inner self-talk from that reality where you already have achieved the goal, right? Be it now, experience it now, as though you are an actor in a part. You do not sit back and visualize yourself doing it. You do it, meaning you are in it. You're not seeing yourself from a distance, right? You are actually in the scene, seeing through your own eyes, experiencing it as though it would now happen in front of you, as though your friend would now walk in the room and say something to you. You're not seeing that as like on a TV screen from the third person point of view, right? So that is already the second technique, right? This is very, very potent because this technique, and that's why I put it second, after we've investigated, hey, what would it be like? Oh, yeah, like this friend, he's so close to me. He would be so happy for me. As an example, he would definitely ask me how I did that. He would definitely congratulate me. What would he say? Bro, that's amazing. I'm just making things up, right? But then you sit down, you take some time out of your day. So you have to feel worthy enough. You have to take your desires serious enough. You have to take yourself serious enough. This needs to be important to you, right? And then you need, because you know that you are worthy of your desires, you then need to sit down and then you need to experience that, right? You need to allow yourself to have that experience, to let the mind calm down, and then you loop that experience till the hunger leaves you, till you're satisfied, till you no longer desire, because you just experience the fulfillment of that desire, so you therefore can no longer desire, because in your imagination, you tune into that reality where it is already done. And then this you feel this relief. And then maybe the desire comes back. And then the next day, then you gently maneuver back into that spiritual experience, into that imaginative experience, back into your one scene that implies that it is done. That is the second technique. Now, let's talk about I remember when, because I personally think this is oftentimes overlooked. I made a specific video only on this method because I really feel that this specifically, for me, produces no resistance, which some people perceive, but this one specifically produces no resistance at all. It is so smoothly, right? What we do is we start to remember when what we desired was a desire. We basically remember when things were undesirable on the outside, but now we put us through that statement in a state that things are now desirable, right? So for me, that's better than just a plain affirmation, which can only be on the level of thought. But remember, it's not about to shift on the level of thought, because the saying is, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. And what is meant by that is not your physical heart, but your heart of being, your center of consciousness, what you as consciousness, the heart, what deep down within where you dwell. And with I remember when, by saying that statement, instead of just a vain affirmation, which can even lead to more confusion and worries, but we say, oh, I remember when I desired this. I remember when I had this symptom. I really remember it. Wow. Yeah, that was undesirable. That was not nice. I remember it. Although you have it right now, you say it, but while you say it, you dwell consciously in the future where you're already free from it. And it's like from that future accomplished state, it's like you look back on that time where you had those undesirable circumstances, right? So in the here and now, you're dwelling in the wish fulfilled, and you say, I remember when this was still a desire. This was only a desire. So this principle can be used in a destructive or a constructive way. You can say, I remember when this was a glorious building, and look at it now, as you become aware of rubble where once a glorious building stood. Or you can stand on rubble and say, I remember when this was a rubble, as you imagine a glorious building. So you get the point, right? You can use this in a very good way, but most of the time we use this quite sadly, unwittingly, in a destructive way. We say, oh, now things are as they are in our life currently, and we say, oh, I remember those good old times. I remember when I was so happy. I remember when I had this. I remember when things were like this. Right? That is, you're here now. You assume the state of back then things were better. I remember when it was good, implying that now, okay, it's not so nice. But also the same way you could say, I remember when I was in this not so nice situation. I remember when I felt stuck. I remember when I felt so lost in life. I remember when I felt so limited. I remember when I felt so financially struggling. I remember when I felt so lonely. I remember when I felt so ill. You see, that is a night and day difference. But it determines where you dwell and what you actually make alive inside of you, which is then going to be reflected. So you can say, I remember when my friend had nothing and now he has much, or I remember when he has much and now he's poor. Both is implying and shifting you in a certain state. I remember when she was healthy, which implies that she's now ill, or I remember when they were unknown, implying that they're now famous. Your friend, for example. Right? The key is that we put the present state, right, our current state in the present circumstances, that we basically put that in the past, right, and therefore imply that things are now different. I remember when, which basically the equation would be, I remember when what I'm now facing, when that was so in my life, but now it's different. Do you know what I mean? This is very, very important, right? You now have a health symptom, and then you would now say, I remember when I had this health symptom. And by saying so, you put yourself into that state where you're free of it, where you're fully fine, and you remember that state, which means, where do you dwell? While you say that in that moment, you dwell in the wish fulfilled. And all that matters is where you dwell within, not the circumstances. They are the delayed mirror. They will change when you change within. Right? If you can remember the old state, it means you're no longer in it. Very important. If you start to really then look, I really remember when I had this health circumstance, this undesirable health circumstance, although it is still in the factual world present, but you within dwell on that state where you remember on it, that means that in consciousness you have moved, you have shifted, you have placed your inner self into the state of the wish fulfilled. And so what happens is that you start to become conscious of the new state. Very powerful, highly recommended. I have an entire video on this on my channel called Almost Forgotten Manifestation Method, because you can also use that so nonchalant throughout the day. It is so resistant-less. It can be so fun, so much fun. It can be so easy, so natural, right? And it is so potent because it moves you internally into a new state when you do it consciously. The next one that a lot of people seem to, overcomplicate or have a lot of questions about is a method basically that Neville called revision. And what you need to understand for that is that you have to understand the principle that creation is finished, right? So in actuality, time is not linear as we perceive it. Like this was yesterday, this is now, and this is tomorrow. Because the only thing you ever experience is the now. When you now close your eyes and you imagine this year, Christmas, your next birthday, the next summer, whatever, you being out with your friends, then when is that taking place, that experience? When are you dwelling there? When are those images coming up? When do you make that shift? In the now. When you now close your eyes and you imagine what happened to you yesterday, what happened to you 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, whenever, when you dwell there, when is that taking place? Right now. Because those things have not ceased to exist. You as consciousness have just simply now shifted into that slice, basically, and then you will shift into I'm traveling there. It's always you shifting, but you are always only experiencing the now. But of course, in the 3D world, we think in time. We say, hey, this happened yesterday at 6 p.m. and this happens tomorrow at 7 p.m. I do the same, of course. That's the human part of us. That's totally natural. But what you need to understand if you want to apply revision consciously is to understand that this experience that you, for example, had yesterday, which was undesirable. You had an argument, someone said no to you, although you expected a yes, something didn't went the way that you wished it would have gone, then you have the power to reimagine it in a different light. Because this is not the only past that is there, so to speak. You experience this one past, but you can also imagine that instead of this person having said no to you, that actually they said yes. And if you dwell there, the past which you now think you experienced, you will disidentify from that, and you will identify with the past where they said yes. Which effects that will have, I can't tell. Right? If then the person calls you and says, hey, you know what, I changed my mind. That happened to me multiple times, by the way. So it definitely has an effect. But what it definitely has an effect on is your state, your relationship to what happened, your point of view to what happened, your identification with what you are identified. So revision, as any other technique, is simply also a shift in our state, what we are identified with. But if you see that you carry a identification with you, with something that happened to you in the past, that you always keep remembering, it always keeps triggering you, you always keep replaying same patterns, then it can be helpful to go into the past and reimagine something to let go of this certain identification, right? So therefore, yes, in a sense, you can change your past, right? Because, like I said, Past and future are imaginative constructs in the now. There's only the now. There's only I am. It's all taking place right now. If I imagine this evening, it is all always there in consciousness that already exists. And in this world, I'll move through time and space, basically. I will do things and time moves by, and then I will also end up, oh, it's evening, great. But in reality, actually the evening is already there. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how consciousness works, right? And again, the power of this method is that you can disidentify with something that happened to you that you seem to carry with you. So what you claim to be in the present is what you manifest in what we call the future. So let me explain that. When you do the revision to change your past, so something happened yesterday and you want to say, no, I wish that this argument never happened. I wish that this person actually said yes to me. Then what you do is in the here now moment, because again, that's the only moment you have. In the here now moment, you go to that experience yesterday, you relive it in a way that you find desirable, right? You relive it, you reimagine it in a way that it played out in a way that was empowering, that feels good to you. And then what you therefore do is you shift your state in the here now. You shift your assumption. You shift what you believe to be true. It all happens in the here now. Although it seems like you go back in the past, but it's still a shift, a conscious shift in the present moment. So if you're still identified with your past, you're carrying it with you, right? That's what a lot of people do is they reproduce their past, right? It's just that happened yesterday. They're identified with it, and they keep pushing it out. They keep expressing it. It keeps being externalized. It keeps being mirrored back, right? They stay in this loop. But you can actually make a cut and say, no, actually, you know what? I grew up always healthy. I grew up always being loved, right? And then that will anchor you in the new state in the here now. And then that will express in what we call the future, right? Then that will manifest in your external world, what we call in the future. So most people reproduce the circumstances of their lives over and over again. That's what I just said. So again, revision, extremely powerful, so helpful. But now you can see why I said at the beginning that each method is dependent on the use case. So if you want to manifest a car, why would you revise something? Like, for me, it would make sense, right? We would imagine something that implies we now have the car. We would more so go into the, I remember when I desired this car. I remember when I didn't have this car, or imagining a scene that implies you have this car approach. But revision is more so when you really see you carry things with you from the past that keep triggering you, that keep coming up. Yeah. So let's go into the final one, which is also on purpose. The order is exactly put it on purpose because this one might take you a while to understand, because the more you investigate into those teachings, more you apply them, more you practice them, more results you gain. And I'm blessed to like work with so many people and hear so many insights, and I have like this broad spectrum of like insights on what really works in which case and all of that. At some point you realize that thankfulness and gratitude is really also an amazing method, because you realize that the moment you have a desire coming to the surface, coming to the outer you, the one now watching this video, coming to you on the surface, but it comes from the depths of your being, and you say, oh, I want this, I want to travel there. But the desire is not that you sit there and ask yourself, what can I desire? What can I really want? No, those desires are given to you. They're your guide. They're like giving you direction. They're kind of helping you to know what is relevant for you in your life. And when you understand that creation is finished, and when you understand that desiring a state means that the opposite of that state exists, meaning that the wish fulfilled exists. You desire a car, you can only desire for it because you can imagine that you have it. You desire a partner, well, that's only possible because you can imagine that you have a partner. You desire that SP, that's possible because you can imagine that you have them. But that's, of course, your own separate topic. I have plenty of videos on that specific topic on my channel. But you get the point, right? You desire more money. Well, you can only desire that because you can also dwell on what it would be like. First method, what would it be like? You can also find that opposite state of now having that. So every desire is simply an unoccupied state right now. It's simply a guide. I desire the car. Well, there's also the state that you can occupy while you have it. You desire this. Well, that's also a state that you can occupy that you now have it, that you now are it. And if you understand this, then thankfulness can come in very smoothly, because as soon as you get a desire, boom, coming in, you can already give thanks that it is fulfilled, because you know that this wish fulfillment already exists. And that is really, really amazing. You can give already gratitude that it is done, that your higher self will perfectly orchestrate it for you. And again, it might need you some time to get to this. So that's why, again, you have to see which method resonates with you at which point. So like Neville said, my third way of praying is simply to feel thankful. If I want something, either for myself or for someone else, I immobilize the physical body, so simply relaxing, right? Produces state akin to sleep, which means he simply, after lunch, he sits down and produces this relaxed state where he just relaxes and breathes for some moments. And in that state, just feel happy, right? Just feel thankful, just feel accomplished, just feel as though your desire is guaranteed, as though it will 100% happen, right? Which thankfulness implies realization of what I want. You can only feel thankful for something that you received or that you already have, that you already are. So generating this overarching, bigger picture, thankful, accomplished whole mood, and giving thanks that your higher self has done it for you, has manifested it for you, so to speak, it's absolutely amazing. I assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and with my mind dominated by the single sensation, I go to sleep, for example. I need to do nothing to make it so, because it already is so. My feeling of the wish fulfilled implies that it is done. Right? This thanks, because you know that whatever desire is given to you is an already existing state, meaning the wish fulfillment of that already exists. So then just giving thanks for the fact that I can only desire this because the wish fulfillment already exists. I don't have to do much if I don't want to do techniques. I can also just, with that thankfulness, generate that mood of accomplishment of the wish fulfilled and keep dwelling there and know that it is done. Therefore, that is amazing. You can test that. You can play with that. Now you learned about those 5 methods that I, in my years of practicing this and my years of teaching this and my years of working with people, I found to be most helpful. And don't get me wrong, there are other methods, right? Some of them I personally find more potent than others. Make up your own mind. These are just 5 that I shared with you. Also that Neville constantly talked about. And I think there's a reason for it, because he also worked with hundreds of people and kind of sees, what is most helpful in the long run and for majority of people. But also find your own way. This is about finding out your own way, your own flow, your own way of playing the game, right? Don't copy everything I say. Make your own experiments. Test this out. Maybe you find out a completely new method. Then please feel free to share it. You can also let me know down in the comments below which one of those you prefer most, with which one you got personally most results. I would love to read that. I read all the comments. And if you need help to apply them, if you have a certain goal in your life, if you want to shift into a certain state, if you want to understand Neville's principles, if you want me to be on your side and the community and a step-by-step system and support and all of that, then you can check out my program. Second link in the video description, and there you can learn more about it and you can join it. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.